Good afternoon. I decided to make a video presentation of my recital defense because some people expressed some interest in hearing it, and I only was able to present it for 2 professors at school. So here it is. I hope you enjoy it and that it gives you some insights into one of the less familiar pieces that I will be playing in my recital a week from today. So my recital defense is entitled Villa-Lobos' Bachianas Brasileiras No. 4, Treasures of History and Heritage. I will preface this presentation with a quote from a young people's concert given by Leonard Bernstein in 1963, which provides an apt backdrop for today's discussion. He says, "Our Latin neighbors have produced a very impressive number of serious symphonic composers who have succeeded in preserving the folk flavor of their own countries, while at the same time expanding their music into what we think of as universal art. That is, music that has not only a nationalistic spirit, but the spirit of all mankind. Certainly the most admired of all these composers was the great Brazilian Villa-Lobos." We will begin today with a brief biography of Villa-Lobos, give some background for the music we are studying, and then dive into our exploration of the music itself through the lens of 3 unifying features that pervade each movement, concluding by considering the significance of this music in our Western art tradition. Heitor Villa-Lobos was born in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil in 1887. Learning from music from an early age, he grew into a bold and purposeful musician and composer. In 1922, he traveled to Paris, where he attained success as a composer, captivating audiences with his music's Brazilian influences, the driving rhythms and the beautiful plaintive melodies that sounded so strange to them, yet became accessible as he integrated them with familiar Western musical traditions, as he did in his famous 9 Bachianas Brasileiras sets. The number 4, these sets, they integrate both the traditions of J.S. Bach as well as Brazilian musical elements, which is part of their unique color. And so we are studying today number 4, which was composed in 1930 for piano originally, and features 2 titles for each movement, one Baroque and the other Brazilian. In the structure of a Baroque suite, it begins with a prelude, utilizing a broken chordal texture like many Bach preludes. The chorale, unsurprisingly, features the rhythm and texture of a Bach chorale, like from one of his cantatas, while aria presents a simple folk song melody before the final dance flies off in a whirlwind, toccata-like finale, alluding to both the rapid jigs that conclude many Bach suites, as well as Latin dance rhythms and polyrhythms. Through these movements' unifying features, namely the rhythmic ostinato motives, the simple Brazilian melodies, and the layered contrapuntal textures, which draw on inspiration from both the works of J.S. Bach as well as Brazilian musical elements, Villa-Lobos expresses fundamental universal aspects of human experience, specifically the passage of time, the value of community, and the enduring presence of beauty, capturing a musical essence that unites humankind across histories and heritages. Well, let's look at the music itself. We'll begin with the rhythmic ostinato bell motive, whose constancy and undulating character evokes the steady passing of time, the rhythm of human life. Each movement presents this motive in a different guise, from a resonant gong, a church bell, to a steady chime or a drum beat. Whatever the evocation, they serve to mark passing time as well as announce the significant events within a community. The prelude introduces and sets the expectation for this ostinato from the outset of the work, with continual half notes in the left hand almost invariably, until finally the right hand takes it over in an ascending line, as you see in the 3rd excerpt on the slide. Besides the introductory prelude, the most steady, anchoring presentation of the ostinato element appears in the chorale as the recurring B-flat chime, which pervades most of the movement, and finally developing into a resonant bass gong in the grandioso section on the bottom left. This could represent how life passes in the context of community, as represented by the chorale's allusion to communal song and experience. The third movement again features our half-note ostinato in either the bass or alto lines. However, in the middle section, the ostinato becomes an eighth note chime, showing how time, although constant, is experienced inconsistently relative to what is happening in a person's life. In a time of sorrow or darkness, time seems to drag, like it may feel like in the first section of this piece, while anxiety or hurry can make time seem to pass by much faster, as you see with those eighth notes. Alternatively, there are also positive reasons for time flying by. The excitement of an adventurous life. In the dance, the percussive ostinato is almost always present, yet ever changing, beginning with a gong every 4 beats, to every 1.5 beats, to a compound rhythmic pattern, 3+3+2, before settling into a steadier quarter note rhythm. In every case, the significance of this motive lies in its consistent, undulating, universal nature. Whatever the season of life, whether joy or sorrow, companionship or loneliness, lament or elation, all this happens within the context of passing time. The second feature I'm going to discuss are the simple Brazilian-style folk-like melodies upon which each movement is based. In each case, the tunes are repetitive, singable, and memorable, giving the impression of the shared music of a community, where everyone lives, listens, learns, and sings together. The prelude introduces this idea with a simple melody based on a 4-note ascending motive, which you can see in blue, which returns in different contexts, but is present in virtually every bar. At the beginning of this set, this straightforward, accessible melodic element functions as an invitation to sing this journey of life together. The second movement, entitled Chorale, after the Lutheran tradition of congregational singing, further emphasizes the allusion to communal song. The 2 main melodies in this movement are derived from a Catholic religious song from a region in northeast Brazil. The chordal homophonic texture of the beginning section evokes the sound of many voices joining together, like singing a hymn, while the clear projection of the melody throughout further reinforces this sense of unity. You can see it in blue. The third movement, centered around a folk song from the same region of Brazil, is once again uncomplicated, giving us the sense that anyone could learn it, its repetitious nature serving as an invitation to join in the familiar tune. For instance, the first part that you see repeats 4 times, and then the second melody twice in the first section alone before returning and doing the same thing again at the end. In the final movement, the whirlwind 16th notes are given shape by a melody marked en dehors, which integrates the communal experience of song and dance so intimately interwoven in many cultures and traditions, while also being reminiscent of certain Bach chorales, such as the famous Jesu Joy of Man's Desiring, where the slower moving theme is presented against a more active accompaniment. Overall, these melodies, inspired by and echoing Brazilian songs, invoke a sense of the value of community and coming together, where shared song shapes our experience of life and provides a context for belonging. The third feature is that of the layered contrapuntal textures Villa-Lobos uses throughout this set, which give the listener a sense of the enduring presence of beauty in the world, a beauty that may be hidden, but is never absent. In the first movement, the main melody is introduced in the right hand on page 1, but in measure 31 to 36 is presented in the tenor against counter melodies in the soprano and bass, which you can see the melodies in blue with the counter melodies in green and purple in the first picture. While finally at the bottom of the page, the melody appears at the bottom of the texture in resonant bass octaves. Sometimes beauty lies beneath the surface and must be looked for and drawn out. In the second movement, the melody begins buried in dissonant harmonies, beauty discovered in the darkest, loneliest places, while it next appears in the bass clef underneath an active descant. Whatever the variable circumstances life throws our way, beauty helps to anchor us. In the final grandioso section, the melody is so expanded and interspersed with decorative right-hand figurations that it all but disappears, except for the way that piano uses the resonance and harmonics of the pedal to keep the melodic notes alive. Beauty is resiliently rooted in the nature of the world and cannot be fully overcome. The counterpoint in the third movement begins with a soprano melody enhanced by the active chromatic bass countermelody, while in the middle section, the melody is harder to find as it must come through the repetitive percussive chords, pedal tones, and chromatic movement. You can see that on the right. Sometimes in the cares of our lives, our ability to find and recognize the beauty around us is all but lost. The fourth movement, through its rhythmic counterpoint, demonstrates the excitement of finding beauty in the complex and unpredictable nature of life. The spinning 16th notes are felt in groups of 3, while the melody unfolds underneath in duple time. Later on, however, the duple melody soars above the left-hand 16th notes, which are still in groups of 3, but now they're accented and felt every 4 notes. Later on, overt polyrhythms of 3/4 continue to add to the energy and exhilaration. Beauty need not always be sublime. It is also exciting, challenging, intense, and rewarding. Thus, as this section has explored, Villa-Lobos' music, through its layered contrapuntal textures, expresses and communicates beauty as experienced by human beings. A presence that is sometimes veiled, but like these melodies, it never leaves us. Thus, as we have observed by tracing the rhythmic ostinato motives, the simple Brazilian melodies, and the layered contrapuntal textures through this work, we discover how Villa-Lobos' music, expressing universal realities, bridges gaps between histories and heritages foreign to us through the distance of time and space. In so doing, the music offers us a treasure, while inviting us to take time in our lives, to make meaningful connections with others, and to be prepared to encounter beauty in unexpected places. Thank you.